We're looking at chapter 5, the effects of using IT. And for us to begin talking about the effects of using IT, we have to predate it a little bit to chapter 1, types and component of the computer system, where we talked about analog and digital computers. And talking about analog computers, they are continuous, right? And we talk about digital computers, they process data in discrete form, zeros and one. Okay, and we also looked at a little bit of chapter 2 just to help us make sense of this, where we talked about sensors, right? And we said the whole idea of sensor is to just measure, right, physical environment. But here's the problems: converting it to the computer would require a hardware. Talking about ADC, the analog to digital converter, and this data would now then be converted to the microprocessor, which is now going to make sense of that information, that data now information, but for it to be able to send it, right, to the environment back, it needs to go through another device known as a DAC, digital to analog converter, and then it goes to the actuator, where we now see it on the signpost, or we now see a kind of movement like opening the door, closing the door, opening the windows, etc., etc. So this is what we call the microprocessor. Now, what helps us to be able to make sense of that is the microprocessor. So this gives us a knowledge of what a microprocessor is, okay? What you call your processor. So here we're looking at the microprocessor-controlled devices, right? And we'll talk about the microprocessor-controlled devices. These are devices that are controlled remotely by various devices to the microprocessor. So when we talk about microcontrolled devices in the home, let's look at this. The microprocessor devices at home, and we'll be looking at the following quickly. We'll be looking at these microprocessor control devices, which can have positive and negative effects on the following: on our lifestyle, physical fitness, social interaction, data security, leisure time, etc., etc., etc. We should also take note that many common households, okay, now have these micro devices to control large numbers of functions. What we call our smart homes. Yes, what we call our smart homes. Okay, so this is very, very important. So let's talk about these two major groups right here on the screen. These two major groups that are very, very pivotal towards how the microprocessor control devices work. Okay, so let's start with the group 1. The first one is automatic washing machine, microwave ovens, cookers, automatic dishwashers, robotic vacuum cleaners, bread making machines, smart fridges, and freezers. These are labor saving. When we talk about labor saving, it simply means that these are devices that help us to do certain tasks while we do other things. It creates the room for us to be able to do other things while these devices are kind of the task. The next one is other devices. And when we look at other devices, we're simply talking about the alarm clocks, television sets, central heating and air conditioning system. We're talking about the home entertainment system. Okay, we're talking about mobile phones, and we're talking about tablets. So these are these labor saving groups and the other group. Remember, many common household devices now have these microprocessors to be able to control a large number. And these devices can be accessed remotely. Okay, so this is very, very important. However, the second group of these devices make them easier to use, and it gives us that additional feature, such as what? That intelligent turning in television set. Okay, and most of you see this when you can set television set in such a way that when it's a certain time, it goes off, and then it comes out. The next thing we want to talk about is lifestyle, leisure time, and physical fitness. So let's talk about it. So when we talk about these lifestyles, we can see that microprocessors are now found in many households. This is to be true, okay? And we've talked about these labor saving devices, and now we're talking about not just labor saving devices, but how does it affect our leisure time, our lifestyle, and our physical fitness. So we'll be talking about a summary, okay, to summarize the effects of using the microprocessor controlled labor saving devices. And here we'll be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the microprocessor controlled labor saving devices. So the first thing I want to talk about is people no longer have to do manual tasks anymore. They don't have to do manual tasks anymore in all retrospect because the devices are there doing the work. Okay. And another advantage is that it gives people more time for leisure activities. This leisure activity talks about shopping, hobbies, etc., etc., etc. So this is very, very important. There's no need to stay at home anymore, right? Probably you're watching your clothes, you want to order some foods to the fridge. You don't need to stay at home anymore because guess what? These devices can be remotely controlled. And not just remotely controlled, they can just go off on themselves, by themselves, right? You're cooking the food, once it's done, it goes off. You're microwaving an item, right? The food, and once it gets to a certain temperature, it goes off. So all these things can be done. These devices can be automated, right? In such a way that it helps you to do other things. You don't have to stay at home even when your clothes is being washed. Just put it in your automatic washing machine, and what happens? You set it in such a way that it does the washing for you, and you're good to go. The next one that we're talking about is the automated burglary alarm, which gives people a sense of security. Now, talking about a sense of security in such a way that it can also warn you if probably you're having intruders coming into your house. So it gives you that warning at all times, probably to also alert securities as much as possible if people are coming into your home. In terms of your smart fridges and your freezers, it can lead to a more healthier lifestyle. How? Because again, it can order foods for you, right? Items for you based on your routines. Okay, that can lead to more healthy lifestyle for you. So if you just going to order the food yourself, it can actually do it for you. And we see that. Disadvantages, however, talks about the fact that it can lead to an unhealthy lifestyle. Yes, because there is a lack of exercise. Instead of going to the grocery stores to get this item, what is happening? You're probably at home just ordering those items, and there is no much of an exercise because that there's that dependent. Talking about dependent, it can also make you lazy. It can make you rather lazy because there is that dependence to these what devices. The next one is there is a potential to lose household skills. And when we talk about the household skills, we're talking about when we depend ourselves on these devices, we're going to lose those skills. Skills like sweeping, washing our clothes, you know, make tidy the house because now we have robotic vacuum cleaners. They can actually do that for us. So all these things are very, very important. The next thing we want to talk about is the general advantage. Okay, the general advantage of um, the microprocessor control devices. Okay, the general advantages and disadvantages of the um, microprocessor controlled devices. So let's look at that. So the first one I have here is it saves energy. Right there on the screen, it saves energy. And how does it save energy? Because it is far more efficient. Okay, these devices can just go off by themselves. They can just go off by themselves. So it is important, right, that um, this becomes an advantage of having a microprocessor control devices, because again, instead of being wasteful in such a way that you have these appliances on and probably you forgot to turn them off, what happens? In our particular economy that we are seeing, we're now in band A, and you know how the hike in electricity has been. It's quite reckless to even leave our gadgets or our appliances on and not, we're not attending to them, or we just forgot about them. So, but having a microprocessor control devices simply means that you don't have to waste any form of energy. Rather, you can save them, because it simply means that right from your work, right, all you have to do is just use your mobile phone and you can turn them off. So all these things are very, very important. It's easier for programming, okay? Because it's easier because it can be programmed to do some things, some tasks for you. Right there on an example is when you have a QR code on the side of the food, and it can be scanned, and the oven will automatically set the cooking program. So you can just scan, okay, this is what it does, and then there's a structure on which that particular item can be done. So all these things are very, very important. However, it can lead to a more wasteful society. Yes. Because what happens is when the circuit board is damaged, and we had a class session where we talked about the microwave oven, and most of you said, yeah, I used to repair it, right? I repair it, it gets spoiled, repair it, gets spoiled. It gets to the point you have to throw it away. But when the circuit board is damaged, what happens? You just invariably just have to throw it away. Okay, and um that becomes a problem. It can be complex to operate. Yeah, it can be complex to operate. Okay, people who are technophobic, they're the technophobes. They are not really confident around electronic devices. People are like that. When it comes to electronic gadgets, they don't really know how to, they just prefer just one thing, and when they're being exposed to something new, there's that technophobe, they have. So that becomes a disadvantage. Again, leaving some devices on standby is very wasteful. We need to know that. Leaving some devices on standby is very wasteful. So this is some things that we need to take note, especially when we have our television sets. They are off, but they are on standby, right? It still simply means that it's still, you know, taking energy, right? It's still running, although it's not as much when it's turned on, but it's still, and that is what we cannot afford. Okay, especially in this present economy that we find ourselves. Okay. Okay, before this, let's talk about data security, right? It's not here on the slide, but the whole idea of data security is the fact that while we have our microprocessor control devices connected to the internet, it can lead to cyber security issues. And how can it lead to cyber security issues? Because if we're able to communicate remotely with our devices in our homes, guess who else can? Hackers. Yeah, most of you was laughing when I was saying that in class. Hackers. And that simply means that if you can see your home, someone else can. These hackers, they don't ask for permission. They don't ask, oh, sorry, Mr. Jaro, I'm about to hack into your home. Do I have permission? They don't, right? They don't ask you. It just happens. They're into your home. That burglary alarm that gives you a sense of protection. Guess what? They turn it off, right? So yes, so that becomes an issue, because again, why there is a lot of positive, we also have to look at the security concern of the micro controlled devices, especially when we're talking about internet-wise. So this is very, very important. Okay, and if they gain access to it, they can get access to your personal details. For example, hacking into your central heating controllers. Okay, it is possible to find out holiday dates, which makes home an easy target for break-ins. Okay, so that's very, very important. Okay. And if they can hack in into your smart fridges, what happens? They can also gain the key data into your credit card. So this is very, very important. The next one that is not on the slide is social interaction. Okay, is social interaction. And social interaction is really key. It's really key because while there are both positive and negative effects, there's social interaction. Now, in the social interaction, right, we're talking about both the positive and negative impact of the microprocessor control devices. Now, why some devices leave people with more times to do outside their home? Other devices encourages people to stay at home. I know most people like Mr. Jao, what are those devices? Your smartphones. Okay, your smartphone. It is no news that these generations are more addicted to smartphones, to their gadgets. Okay, to their gadgets. And that simply means when they disconnect you from it, it looks as if the whole world is coming to an end. Okay, in my days, I know I'm old school. We're offline. We worked offline, and that simply means we had to do a lot of reading and reading, do a lot of searches, with researching on our own. And now we have all these tools, doing it, and it's good, But in this case, in terms of social interaction, allow people to stay at home, and not just smartphones, smart televisions, tablets, and it also, we're looking at both positive, allows people to be able to communicate with what we call the VoIP. And this simply means the voice over internet protocol. Yes. So we're talking about the voice over internet protocol. What is it? We talked about it. So what's the voice over internet protocol?
Voice over internet protocol, I feel like is that you use like a computer, microphone, and speakers, and like that's you hold an audio conference with something like that.
Okay. Okay. Please, you have the mic.
Okay. I think voice over internet protocol is like a kind of technology that allows you to use the internet to make voice calls instead of like a phone line.
Perfect. Perfect. Right. So yes, contributions of both Yano and Sochi just makes up what I'm about to say. That's just what it is. Right? That's just what it is. Yeah. So when we talk about the voice over internet protocol, we just simply say this is making and receiving calls via the internet. Okay, we're making and receiving calls via the internet. So this is really important. Okay, so and it is a type of video conferencing. So let's take so let's talk about the benefits. Let's talk about the benefits. Benefits. Let's talk about the benefits of social interaction. So the first one is the fact that it is easier to make friends. Okay, it is easier to make friends using chat rooms, right? Using chat rooms. So it's easier to make friends using chat rooms. The next one is it is easier to find people that share similar interests, right? That share similar interests, similar hobbies, right? In the case of ICT, Ajiro Tech has been able to, bring a lot of students from across continent, now having similar interests, now having to have, small groups, small group studies, which is something I'm going to introduce this term to my form room. A lot of small group studies, new study tips, new study habits, just so you can improve in how you study. And the most effective way, the most efficient way in which you can study. So it allows people to find similar interests. Okay, it is also less expensive. That's the third one. Less expensive. Less expensive using, right? Less expensive to keep in touch. To keep in touch, right? Using what? The VoIP IP technology. It's expensive. It's less expensive because you're just making a receiving call by the internet. Unlike your normal calls, your line that you would have made, you have to pay a lot of credit to do. But now you're just making calls via the internet. So this is very, very important. It is very, very important. However, when we talk about the negative effect, so let's talk about the negative effect. When we talk about the negative effect, okay, see, I should have. Okay, so when we talk about the negative effect, the first thing we want to talk about is social isolation. Yes, social isolation. I want to talk about that. Yes, negative. And number one on my board is social isolation. Now, when I talk about social isolation, I'm simply talking about people don't meet face to face as much anymore. Everything is online. Everything is online. Everything is online. People don't meet face to face. Emily was contributing to this particular discussion. She said she prefers meeting people face to face. Yeah, I think Emily said that. She prefers meeting face to face. I'm not of the opinion that everything has to be online, and that is the truth. People don't meet face to face as much because in our words, and I quote, you don't know who's who. People can not be who they are, and that is the truth because it simply means that people can behave differently. That's the second point. People behave differently when they are online. And sometimes they can be rude, more aggressive. And I think the one that is trending right now is cyberbullying. Please, it shouldn't be. Literally, there is no accolade, there is no reward for bullying somebody on and off the internet. It's not. And when I see learners do that, it speaks more of you and how well your parents are just, and more of the influence of your parents on you. Because there is no logical reason why you should bully anyone. I communicate this, to you guys, even to my foreign students, and I say no to it. Because it's not, there is no prize. There is no prize. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're not trying to be, there's no accolade for being a big boy, a big girl, or trying to be who is who. No, there's not. And that simply means that we have to ensure that it is not seen among us. Please, because it is a real problem, particularly for this young generation. It is a big problem. And it breaks my heart, really, when I have learners engaging in cyberbullying. It breaks my heart. Okay, so please, it shouldn't be. Okay. And of course, the third one is a lack of social interaction. Yes, it can make people anxious when you're meeting people in real life. Because all your time you're used to what? Chatting with people. So it can make people more anxious in meeting people in real life. The next thing I want to talk about, is monitoring. Okay, monitoring. Okay, and controlling transport. When we talk about monitoring and controlling transport, what are we simply saying? We are simply saying that how can we control our transport system? How can we use this microprocessor-controlled devices in monitoring and controlling devices? So the first one we'll talk about is monitoring of traffic on motorways. Monitoring of traffic on motorways. So we're talking about monitoring of traffic. Okay, I'm pretty sure traffic on motorways. Now let's talk about this. And now I can switch to my slide. Yes. Okay, no, think this one, yeah. Okay. So many modern motorways are now called smart motorways. So what's a smart motorway? Okay. Now I said that in 9A, right? I was talking about it in class, and I said you don't call it road, you don't call it road, right? I think I was having that conversation with particularly with Sumaina, and I said you don't call it road, it's a smart motorway, right? I'm not crossing the road, I'm crossing the smart motorway because it simply means that this is where vehicles passes through. So it is called a motorway. So when we add a smart motorway, it simply means that it is automated, right? They're adding certain devices to probably ensure and reduce any form of traffic congestion. Okay, I'm just trying to break it down as much as possible. So what's a smart motorway? Right there, it's right there on your screen. Okay, a smart motorway is the monitoring and controlling or monitoring and control of traffic displayed on the signs, which is controlled by a central computer system. That is one point. The second point is the smart motorway is the monitoring and control of information displayed, okay, on the signs, which is controlled by a central computer system. So let's look at, and the whole idea of this smart motorway is if there's been an accident or there's a considerable traffic congestion, then the smart motorway signs can control the traffic to keep it moving or even redirect it to avoid any form of accident. We talked about this in class. Even the traffic lights in cities are now what? Computer controlled. And this helps us to properly, reduce any form of traffic congestion. Imagine the chaos that will be caused if any of this system were out. I think I talked about it in one class. Imagine if one traffic light saying green, the other traffic light saying green. Imagine the chaos. Don't imagine it. Okay, don't. But it would be chaotic. Okay, so someone can then have control and then they can choose whatever damage they want to do. Okay, so yes, we are now looking at the way airline network controlling system. And here we'll be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of transport monitoring and control system right there on your screen. Advantages and disadvantages of the transport monitoring and control system. The first thing we have to look at the smart motorway is that they constantly, right here, they constantly adapt to traffic conditions. Okay, so it's something you need to take note of. They constantly adapt to what traffic conditions. Okay, so they constantly right here traffic conditions, and this helps us to reduce any form of traffic jams and minimize everyone's journey time. So when they notice that the traffic is much, when the system notices traffic is much, it finds a way to reduce it. When it notices that it is trying to be more chaotic, it finds a way to redirect it as much as possible. Okay. The next one is traffic systems are more efficient. Okay, it makes it more efficient because now you're having more trains, more airplanes. They can now use the transport network, allowing for a more regular service. So this is very, very important because now we have the systems now automated. No form of any form of manual errors. These have been totally eliminated. Traffic offenses. Okay, driving in the wrong lane. okay, which can automatically be penalizing an ANPL. And you know, ask a question. She said, Mr. Joe, what's an ANPL? An ANPL simply means automated number plate recognition. That's what it is, automated number plate recognition. And this simply means that uh, these are is a device that automatically detects the plate number to see who it belongs to. Now, most of the time, it does mean nothing, right? This is something we see in chapter 6. Yes, chapter 6, ICT application. Right here, the stem under what? Under recognition system. So this is very, very important. So they help us. So in the case of maybe a car is stolen, right? A car is missing. What happens? This automatic number plate recognition will help to look out to the smart motorway to see if that car is being driven anywhere. And it's going to flag it as, oh, this car doesn't belong to this person. This is the car and can allow the authorities to go after the person. So that's the whole function of the AMPL, to ensure that all these vehicles are probably the vehicles are detected, and then again it shows who the owner is. There are certain examples I gave in class, but I'm not going to talk about them because obviously this will be uploaded to YouTube, and I don't want any form of flag from our government or anything. So I'm just trying to avoid that. Okay, but I talked about some certain examples, concerning our country, and also about a certain noble celebrity in the footballing section. Again, I don't want to talk about it because this will be uploaded on YouTube. Okay, so let's talk about disadvantages. Okay, so when we talk about disadvantages, is the fact that a hacker could gain access to the computerized system and can cause disruption. This is what we talk. We talk about hacking in chapter 8 in the textbook. We're talking about the third part of it. We're talking about safety and security, and of course, that will be when you get to the next phase of the journey in ICT. So hackers could gain access because it's computerized. And anything that is computerized, anything that has to do with internet related, it can be vulnerable to any form of cyber attack. We have to talk about it. And if it's there, they can just use it to target somebody. And it's right there. It simply means that with even the ANPL, simply that innocent people movement can easily be tracked. Because I can just key in to say, okay, I'm looking for this plate number. And it can be able to track where the person is going and to what location. And what happens? Who else has access to this data? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. Who has access to the data? Because it simply means that why this is happening, it is being used in protecting the lives of the innocent and getting offenders, it can easily switch the other way. Now, I don't mean, I'm not saying this to scare anybody. It's okay. Now I'm driving my car. Now my dad. Yes, of course. We talk about it in chapter 8. Definitely, e-safety. We talk about personal data. We talk about data protection act because every government, especially the European Union, they are governed. Every country, every continent is governed by this data protection act. Simply means that every data that is gotten from these respective organizations, they are not licensed to share these data without due process. So that is why your data are safe, except it is being hacked. And of course, there are different setting layers on it. So it's not something that it's not something that is right there on the web that just has free access. And please also know that a poorly designed system could compromise safety. If the system is not designed properly, if there's no tight security measure in place, my God, only one could be able to imagine what will happen. Only God. Okay, so this is why it's important that it has to be designed properly. Okay, if the contact system fails, the whole transport system will be brought down to a standstill. You know what I'm talking about? Imagine if the traffic light just goes off. I don't want to think about it. Really, I don't want to think about it. It's showing green and then probably showing yellow and goes off. What happens? What happens? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is autonomous vehicle in transport. Autonomous vehicle in transport. I want to talk about that. Yes, autonomous. The word autonomous, can you help us? Autonomous. Yes, I think that's spelling. Can you help us with that word? When we talk about autonomous, what do we mean? Autonomous vehicle.
Autonomous
Okay.
means it can operate on its own.
Want to say something to it? You have the mic.
Oh, I just wanted to add what he said in my class, driverless cars. That's all.
Good. So driverless, right? So when we talk about autonomous, it simply means vehicles, it means driverless vehicles, driving on their own. Okay. And we are now seeing with the use of Elon Musk, yeah, doing a fantastic job. Okay. So, and we are also seeing complex robots. Okay. But the big problem is not really the technology. The big problem is not really the technology. Because this problem will be solved over time. The problem of autonomous vehicle is human what? Perception. Yeah, so it takes a large leap of faith for humans to ride in any autonomous car or an aeroplane. Now imagine sitting in a car with no driver driving you. If it's my mom, she's going to pray out to the journey. She's really going to pray out to the journey. Okay. And it takes a leap of faith to just stay in the car, nobody's driving you, and it's taking you to a direction. And you're going to trust that a no driver is taking you to a direction. And this is something we are now seeing. Okay. Although we have now received the autonomous trains. Yes, over there in the UK, in the US, we see that driverless trains where there's no driver, but the train is going to take us to our destination. We chose the train because again, there's nothing. The train is not overlapping any train. It's not trying to prove a point. There is no malware, right? I'm just going to interpret that so other learners who are listening. It simply means all this public transport. They can be very funny. You're trying to say, okay, who's going to overtake who, and then you just sit there with no driver. Okay. Okay, so we're seeing that. Okay, so that and in general, even the aeroplane, we're seeing the stability of that. In fact, they're working so hard in such a way that we have with no pilot that can just take you off and then land you down with no pilot. And that is something that has been worked that is currently in progress. However, this is the reality. This is the future. It is now autonomous vehicles in transport. So let's talk about the autonomous cars, buses, and vans. Please take note that autonomous cars makes use of the following. Okay, please write this down. Autonomous cars makes use of the following. I have sensors, cameras, actuators, microprocessors. I probably should have I want to do this. Let me put the microprocessors here just to make the explanation easy and simple. Actuators. Okay, so we have this. So when we talk about the sensor has what we call a radar and ultrasonic. Okay. Now take note that together, right, with very complex algorithm, they carry out this action safely. So when we talk about the sensor makes what we call a radar and an ultrasonic. Now, when you're driving your car, right, and you're driving your car and it's getting close to an object, what happens? It gives you a sound because it's able to feel the presence of an object. So you need to do that ultrasonic. Something you see in the A level when we are looking at information technology, right then, with the course code 9626. I think I have a video on that in my YouTube channel. The ultrasonic under sensors. So that is very, very important. Now, when we talk about the cameras are the eyes and ears, okay, of the car. Years back, what we do is that when our fathers were driving, we are the ones with the eyes and ears. That it stops, that it navigates, that it navigate, no, that it stop, move. And if you don't do it well, you're probably gonna get a little bit of conversation. This is the word, conversation. Okay. So yes, so they're the eyes and ears of the car. Okay, because again, why they help to control the system in cars to perform functioning by what we call sensing. They sense the dynamic conditions on the road. Okay, so that's very, very important. For the microprocessor, just going to this so I can have some writings. Now, for the microprocessor, they process the data received. The microprocessor, they process the data received, okay, from cameras, right? From cameras and from sensor. Again, the microprocessor process data received from the camera and sensor. And they now send the signal to what we call the actuator, right? The actuator to perform physical actions.
Teacher, she asked what an autonomous vehicle is, but I am not sure whether she understands now or not.
Okay, so the whole idea of autonomous vehicle, we talked about they are driverless, right? And it simply means that they can be able to move from place to place without any form of human interaction or involvement. So I hope that is fine. So again, for the microprocessor, they process the data received from the cameras and sensors, and then they send the signals to actuators to perform these following physical actions. So I'm going to do that. These physical actions. One of them is change gear. Change gear. The other one is apply brakes. Apply the brakes. And the other one is turn the steering wheels. So yes, the three. Change the gear, apply the brakes, turn the steering wheels. Okay. So remember that when it comes to cameras, they catch the visual data from the surroundings. Why the radar and ultrasonic, which is what the sensor allows the building or allows you to build up a 3D image of your surrounding. It is very important, especially at night or when the visibility is poor and when there's a heavy rain or fog at night. Okay, especially those fog at night make it difficult for you to see, so you have to take note. Okay, now I have a question real quick, and probably if you know this, you can just help us out. Now, the question is, suppose an autonomous car is approaching a set of traffic lights, which are showing red. The first thing the control system in the car needs to recognize is the road sign. That's the first step. It needs to recognize the road sign. And once you recognize the road sign for the autonomous car, what happens is that it checks to the database by the microprocessor, checking the preset value to know what actions to take. Okay? Because the traffic light shows red, the microprocessor must now send a signal to the actuator to perform what? Yes, I'm going to call on when the microprocessor sends the signal to the actuator, what does it perform? What does the actuator perform then? Hand was raised up, so let's hear from you.
Apply the brakes.
Okay. So when it applies the brake, what does it put the gear to? It's going to change the gear. It's going to change the gear to what? Okay, so it's going to change the gear to park, right? So again, it's going to apply the brakes. We've talked about it here. It's going to, let me get this here. Okay. It's going to apply the brakes, and then it's going to change the gear to what? Park. That's why you see P in the car, right? Park. And of course, constant monitoring must take place until the light changes to green. And when it lightning to gain, what happens? The microprocessor will gain, instruct the actuator to put the car into the first gear and then release the brakes and operate the throttle, what we call your accelerator. So this is the whole process. It goes through again and again and again. So let's talk about advantages and disadvantages. I'm just going to do this. The advantages, right? So let's look at the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so let's look at it. So for the advantages and disadvantages, what the first advantage here is that it's safer because human error is removed. It's safer because what human error is what removed. Remember, it's autonomous, so it's safer because human error is removed, so leading to fewer accidents. Okay, safer. Okay, and the reason is human error. Human error is what removed. Okay, the next one, it is better for the environment because vehicles will operate more efficiently. There's not going to be any form of overtaking or any form of unnecessary accident or whatever, so it's better for the environment. Okay, it can help to reduce traffic congestions. Remember, human causes stop and go in a phantom traffic jam. That's reality. When it's time to stop, they still want to. In fact, apologies, but I just have to say this, right? Now, probably in my country, right? Nigeria, right? So what happens is when it's showing the yellow sign, right, which is ready, and it wants to get to the green, right? So what happens is after the green, it goes back to the ready and then telling you to stop. What happens? It is at that time that our typical Nigerian citizen, which I love so much, I love them so much, right, is going to speed their cars, okay? And they try to see how they will get to the other side before it shows red. Okay, it looks like a GTA. Trust me, I've seen this, especially in the island. I've seen this. It's like a GTA. I'm like, whoa, this is like real life GTA. You see them so far. At that point, it's like everything depends on them getting to the other side before it gets to red. Literally. Okay, literally. And obviously, most of them, at the time it gets to red, they're still moving. So the very the time for you to start is the time for you to probably reduce your speed and wait till it probably goes to red and goes back to green. So that is very, very important. It increases the lane capacity. Okay. And of course, recently we showed that automobile vehicle will increase lane capacity by 100%, and of course, increase speed by 20% due to what braking and acceleration responses. Of course, it reduces travel time. Now, if an autonomous vehicle tells you I'm getting there by 20 minutes, it's going to recalibrate everything to ensure that it gets there by 20 minutes. It gets there by 20 minutes. So that's very, very important. Okay. For disadvantages, it is very expensive to set up. For disadvantages, very expensive. Very expensive to set up. Okay. And of course, the next one is the ever-present fear of hacking into the vehicle control system. There's that present. There's that fear. What happens if I'm in that car? I want to go to Hull City. I want to go to Hull, and I see myself in Nottingham. What happens? There's that fear. Or you want to get to a particular destination and the car is still moving. They're like, this is where I'm supposed to stop. And that's when we start communicating to God. Oh God, please help us. Okay? Yeah. Of course, we wanted to sing a song, but I don't want this to be flagged off. So yes. So that is that ever-present fear of hacking into the vehicle control system. It's always going to be there. It is security. There's always going to be a security and safety issue, especially with software glitches, which could be catastrophic. And any update would need to be carefully controlled. Nothing more terrible than having a software glitch in the middle of a highway. It's unthinkable to think about it. I don't want to even think about it. Okay. And of course, another disadvantage is that there's a need to ensure that the system is well maintained. The system is well maintained. For drivers and passengers, there is that reluctancy of this new technology. Yes, I'm an ICT teacher, but it's going to take me a whole lot to sit in a vehicle with no driver. I'm sorry, the cat's out of the bag. Okay. Yes, right? I'm from my mom, so yes. You know, she's in fact she's going to start paying for me the moment I get into the car. So there's that reluctancy, literally that reluctancy of this new technology. So that is and let's not forget this fact that if we have autonomous vehicles, what happens to drivers? What happens to drivers? It simply means that a reduction in the need of taxis could lead to unemployment. There's no need for taxis anymore. No need. And that simply means you're going to take food from people who are working so hard in feeding their families. Technology is not kind to humanity. Okay, it's not. Literally. We've talked about the autonomous train, right? Something about the light detection and vision, what we call the LDAR. So let's take note of that. Okay, it simply uses a laser to build up a 3D image of the surroundings for the trains. Okay, for the autonomous trains. So that is very, very important. For autonomous aeroplanes, we call them pilotless. Pilotless. For autonomous vehicle, we call them driverless. Remember, it's a driver that takes you. Now, it all makes sense, right? Autonomous cars, it simply means driverless cars. Autonomous aeroplanes simply means what? Pilotless. It's a pilot, so there's no more pilot driving it. Okay. So for autonomous trains, it's still driverless trains because it's the driver that takes you in the train. So what happens in autonomous? Let's talk about the autonomous aeroplanes. Okay. So yes, so aeroplanes have used autopilot for many years to control flights. This is nothing new. In fact, we relax when it's on. Most of them even know it's autopilot. I think I was saying it in class. Most of you are not even aware that the planes you enter most of the time, in fact, 60% of the time, the pilot is not the one. They're even sleeping, chilling, and they tell you, you know what, we'll get to this destination in a few minutes. Just relax and enjoy yourself. Okay, most of the time, I don't even hear what they're saying. I'm like, please, what are you saying? When are we landing? You know? Okay, so we'll be using autopilot for many years to control flights. Human pilots only take over. Please take note. For human pilots, they only take over during takeoffs and landing. But when they are in the air, it is autopilot. So when we are building autonomous aeroplanes, we would even make more existence use of what? The sensor, the actuators, and microprocessor to control all stages of the flight. Now let's talk about some of the main features of a control system. Let's talk about some of the main features of a control system on a pilotless aeroplane. The first thing we need to talk about is the sensor. What the sensor does? Sensor is to detect any form of what? Turbulence to ensure smooth flights. It detects any form of turbulence. Right now, as of this time that this video is being recorded, there is a serious flash flood in UAE, United Arab Emirates. Most of my students are seriously affected in this flash flood. They couldn't even write the IGCSE. You know, most of them like that, the people 2 is cancelled, people 3 is cancelled. And they're not even showing people why they're still going to home. Because for some reason, there is a flood all over the UAE. And it's really affecting people's homes. And because of that, so many flights that had to be cancelled as of the time of this record had to be cancelled. Okay, so an increase in self-testing in all circuits and system. So there's going to be an increase in self-testing because again, we're making use of the sensor, we're making use of the actuators and microprocessors. So there's going to be a lot of self-testing. The system is going to do a self-diagnose to ensure that the plane is a good working condition. Sensor will automatically detect depressurization in the cabin, okay, therefore allowing for a quick stabilization of the aeroplane. We all know this. We've been on planes, so we know what we're talking about. So now we're begin this autonomous. These are the features that we're going to be seeing. Okay, the use of GPS, talking about your geographical positioning system, and this is something we're going to look at in chapter 6, ICT application. We're talking about satellites. It's going to be using GPS, right, for navigations and speed calculation. Okay, the use of actuators. What are we using actuators for? To control. What are we controlling? For example, the throttles, the flag. The flag talks about the wings. I think, yeah, the wings, yes, and the rotor. I'm not a pilot, so forgive me if I'm not getting them accurately, right? Okay. All right. So this is very, very important. Again, I talked about the fact that some of the main features of a control system in the pilot-led aeroplane is detecting sensors to detect the turbulence to ensure a smooth flight. We have an increase in self-testing in all circuits and systems. We have sensors that will automatically detect deep pressurization in the cabin, therefore allowing for a quick stabilization of the aeroplane. We also talked about the use of GPS for navigation and speed calculations, and of course, use of actuators to actually control those throttles and flags. Okay. Now, if we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of autonomous airplanes, I'm just going to talk about just one or two. For advantages, we have improvement in passengers' comfort because everything is properly being checked. Okay, it improves safety. Do you know? Let's do DIY, right? DIY, right? Do you know? Right? Okay, it's called DYK, right? Do you know that most crashes, or what they call it, maybe the fun fact, right? Most crashes of aeroplanes have been attributed to pilots induced error. It shouldn't be a fun fact, but it is a fact. Most crashes have been attributed to pilot induced errors. Something happened. Something. I don't know what that something is. I'm not a pilot, right? So I've tried. Okay, so that is actually there. So disadvantages, I have security aspect. If no pilot on board, how then would we talk about terrorists? Okay, how then we talk about terrorists? So that becomes a problem because no pilot on board. Okay, hacking into the system could be possible. So you could hack into the system. We see this in movies, right? You can hack into the system and then you can reroute the flight. So that becomes an issue. All right. So the next one I want to talk about is right here. So the next one I have is this. Potential health problems related to the prolonged use of IT equipment. When we are in the office, when we are using our laptop. Now, it is important for you to know this because when we enter to, when we talk about chapter 8 of the textbook, we're going to make a reference to this. We're talking about physical safety, right? And there's a video somewhere on my YouTube channel, you can have fun with it. And we're talking about physical safety. We're going to relate back to this particular point in time, talking about the health risk. Okay, so there are potential health problems related to prolonged use of IT. When we're using this equipment, there is a health problem to it. There's a prolonged health problem to it. And we're going to look at the health risk and their reasons and how we can prevent them. Let's talk about them. The first one I want to talk about is the back and neck strain. Right here. Let me get this. The back and neck strain. Okay, so in the back and neck strain, what happens? This is caused, right, by sitting in front of the computer screen for long periods of time. Please take note. When you sit in front of the computer for a long period of time, and this is what you do when you sit in the computer for a long period of time. Number one, you're watching Netflix. I'm sharing your secret. And tell me probably in the comment whatever which one is right. You're watching Netflix, you're watching Showmax, I don't know, I think you're watching other ones, right? You're streaming something, and when you should be doing your academic work, you should be doing your homework. Okay, just in case this is a big, probably you're watching this when it's uploaded. And yes, it's of doing your homework, you're watching all those things, and now it's time to do for your work. You spend 2-3 hours. You spend 2-3 hours in the computer screen, and now it can cause a back and neck strain. You need to take note of that. So we sit in front of the computer screen for a long period of time. It can cause back and neck, especially if we do this consistently. It can cause a back and neck strain. However, what is the solution? How can we eliminate? How can we reduce this health risk? And the first thing you need to take note is use footrest, right? There's a footrest that you need to use, a footrest to reduce a posture problem. Footrest. Okay. The next one is the next one I want to talk about is tiltable screens. Right? Use tiltable screens, of course, and of course, tiltable screens raised to the correct height to ensure the neck is at the right angle. Okay, tiltable screens, and of course, you have to raise your monitors to the correct height to ensure that your neck is at the right angle. The next one is to use a fully adjustable chair. If you have a fully adjustable chair that you can be able to go back and forth, that's a certain mix of what exercise to give you what the correct posture, to give you what the correct posture. So that is very important. The next thing I want to talk about before I get to the icing of the cake is eye strain. It says you have an eye strain. Okay, how do you know you have an eye strain? Now, quickly, for an eye strain, this is caused, okay, by staring at a computer screen for a long period of time. Okay, when you are staring, caused by staring at the computer screen for a long period of time, or by having incorrect lighting, okay, in the room. Okay, when there's an incorrect lighting in the room, that can cause an headache or an eye strain. Okay, headache or an eye strain. So please, let's take note of that. Okay, so it is caused by staring at the computer screen for a long period of time by having incorrect lighting. Now, what becomes the prevention, elimination, and reduction of this health risk? Now, I probably should not say this, but you have to change your screen to LCD or to LED if you're using an older CRT screens. Now, this is not a problem because most laptops are either LCDs, light crystal display. You see that we talked about it in chapter 2 when we talk about input and output device, right? LCD simply means light crystal display. CRT means cathode ray tubes. References on chapter 2 on monitors, and we have the LED, which is the light emitting diode. Okay, so if probably using the CRT, you probably need to change it to what? An LCD. Okay, so that is very important. Take regular breaks and do exercise. Most time when I'm working, I stand up and move around because when I sit at the computer, when I'm staring, not sitting, when I'm staring at the computer screen for a long period of time, it can cause an eye strain. It can cause what? An eye strain. And of course, an incorrect lighting can cause what? A neck strain. And you can see that right here. You can see that this wonderful lady, she's looking at her eyes. She's actually, because she's working for too long. Okay, so that becomes a problem. The next one is make use of anti-glare screens right here. If the room lighting is incorrect, anti-glare screens. If the room lighting, probably you have a light bulb that is flickering, and I don't even advise it. If you have a light bulb that is flickering, please get it changed. It's not good for the eyes, please. I'm not an eye doctor, not a medical practitioner, but I know too well that it is not good for the eye. So please, let's take note of these are things that are very, very important to our health. And when it comes to health, please, you have to prioritize it. I'm begging you guys, right? You have to prioritize it, okay? And another one I want to talk about is please get your eye tested on a regular basis. Okay? Please get your eye tested. If you've been staying on the computer screen for too long, you probably need to get your eye tested on a regular basis because again, medium vision glasses can be prescribed to the user, as a persistent problem if you have a persistent problem with your eye strain, okay, or any form of headache. So that's important. Now, again, we will talk about headaches, and in the slide I put them together. For headache is caused by incorrect lighting. So the first one is for headaches, the other one is for eye strain. When you stay at the computer screen for too long, it's eye strain. When it's caused by any form of incorrect lightning, that can cause what? Headache. Again, what do you need to use? Make use of the anti-glare screen if the room is incorrect. Okay, take regular breaks for headaches. Okay, and please, you should get your eye tested. That's very important. Then let's talk about icing of the cake, RSI, repetitive strain injury. This is problem. This is common problem. This is common health risk. What about repetitive strain injury? What are we talking about? This is damage right here to fingers and wrist, which is caused by the continuous or repetitive typing and clicking. Okay, so what am I saying? The repetitive use of what? The keyboard and mouse. Yes. It causes damage to your fingers and wrist. Okay, via the continuous or repetitive use of your keyboard and typing on your keyboard and clicking of your mouse. How do we eliminate and reduce it? This is so important. Okay, so how do we eliminate and reduce this? Again, ensure correct posture is maintained. Sit properly when you're using the keyboard and when you're using your mouse. Okay, make proper use of a wrist rest when using a mouse or a keyboard. Take regular breaks. Do exercise. Every time you are typing, I'm speaking to myself. Mr. Ajiro, you're also talking to yourself, right? Not just to your student, you're talking to yourself as well. I mean, yes, this is also for me. Yes, I know it's for me, right? So when because you're typing too much, you're using the mouse, take frequent breaks, right? Ajiro, take frequent breaks, okay? Yes, I will. Okay. And of course, you can make it about ergonomic keyboard. I had to get an ergonomic keyboard from MTN and also a mouse. Okay, so get ergonomic keyboard, get ergonomic mouse. If possible, instead of typing, what do you use? A voice activated software, right? If probably the person is prone toward using mouse or keyboard, use voice activated software to help you do your work. And finally, before we switch to Kahoot, we have the ozone irritation. Ozone irritation. When we talk about the ozone irritation, what are we talking about? We're talking about this is caused by the laser printer. Okay, it's caused by the laser printer in an office. Now we talked about this is for printers output, right? So it is caused by laser printers in an office, and it's not the symptoms are dry skin and respiratory problem. So please, you really don't want to be around when they are doing a lot of, especially when you are doing a lot of printing. Please ensure the environment is conducive with your printers. Okay, don't just get close to it and be printing. It's not really good, especially if you're using a laser printer. Even if it's an inkjet, it can cause ozone irritation. Please, I know most of you are not aware about this, and now you do, and you can also tell your friends. Okay, so what are the things that how can we reduce or eliminate this problem, this health risk? Proper ventilation should exist. Proper ventilation. Don't be under you're printing your slide because you want to, because Mr. Jones, you should print your slides in your notebook, and then if your place is stuffy, it's not good for your health. Health first, please. Okay. The laser printer should be housed in designated printer room. If you don't have a printer room, it should definitely in a place where there is a conducive ventilation. Okay. Change to inkjet. I said the problem persists with laser printer, but if you have an inkjet, probably that is you're not going to have that issue as much as possible. And there we have it. We are done with chapter 5 of the textbook.